There's a lot of negativity in the world, and it's easy to give in to doomerism when faced with the climate crisis and continued global instability. Solarpunk really breathes a breath of fresh air and optimism about the future into what can often be a really bleak online world. It really fights back against the often popular depictions of dystopian futures where society has either completely collapsed or given in to the tyranny of capitalism and reached the final neoliberal conclusions such as cyberpunk, for example, Blade Runner. I think it's best described by Lauren Sung from the University of Georgia as an intersection of sci-fi, sustainability, and hope. Solarpunk depicts a world where humanity is thriving thanks to finding a harmony with nature and using renewable forms of energy such as solar, wind, and hydropower to the betterment of all. In addition, with making technology an integral part of our lives without losing our humanity. And what started as a purely aesthetic has branched out into a full subgenre of science fiction and is growing in popularity. The aesthetic started on Tumblr in the early 2010s, or possibly even earlier than that, and it really fills the gap between those near-future dystopias and then the far-future utopias, which you see such as like Star Trek. Solarpunk, often called the realistic Star Trek, has many aesthetic depictions, often showing urban settings that have been greenwashed with trees and gardens in unrealistic ways. However, recently there's been a shift towards more realistic and ethical depictions of urban agriculture and permaculture, as well as sustainable and energy efficient communities using earthships and more walkable cities, things like that. And it's also not shying away from technology, as I mentioned before, but it's trying to embrace it. So you'll often see depictions of automatons or android-like robots being an integral part of society in order to protect and nurture the natural environment, not just replace it with concrete and steel. As the subgenre has evolved, there's been a recent explosion of short stories and anthologies based on cyberpunk and lunarpunk. From what I can tell, lunarpunk is more based in magic rather than technology as a subgenre. The genre of solarpunk is focused, especially in stories, is focused on activists and societal change, moving towards or having just achieved a solarpunk society. The themes in many of these fictional works focus heavily on actions and the implementations of the solarpunk ethos rather than just descriptions of the world of the near future. And I think from this further explosion of the subgenre is where we have started to come across the ideological movement. It has a major focus on abolishing classism, racism, and resource inequality. It's fairly heavily anti-consumerism with a focus on abolishing things like fast fashion, food wastage, and promotes things like recycling, upcycling, repurposing, permaculture, and the decentralization and open sourcing of technologies and processes and tools to allow everyone to have their basic needs met first. Things like food, water, shelter, and human autonomy are the core concepts of a lot of solarpunk ideology. There's a fairly staunch opposition to eco-fascism, tyranny, and capitalism, or more specifically, the continued hegemonic inequality of classism. Solarpunk is really starting to build a platform for grassroots change and collective action, especially through things like tool libraries, regenerative design, guerrilla gardening, cooperatives, and positive mental psychology. I really think that Solarpunk is a bright and positive force online, and it's much needed. Solarpunk is really a pillar to gather those that would like a community that thinks in terms of ecological and ethical prosperity into the future, and it's really a possible antidote to the collective hurdles of disassociation and apathy from the growing social media penetration into the social fabric of our society. It can really offer and sustain the current generations and future generations of a very optimistic and realistic version of a society that we could get to very soon. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to my thoughts. I'm keen to hear your thoughts in the comments or on social media. Remember to be charitable to others' ideas, embrace those you love, and enjoy the beauty of nature while we can. Cheers. Catch you in the next one.